had to go right
Oh
there.
shoot! I thought
No,
you
no,
said
no,
you
don't
could
go back the other way.
I thought you said you could go around.
You did too.
I don't think we have this designated an area, but we can create one right here, or the bleachers, whatever. Okay, right here's fine.
Good morning. Good morning. Welcome back.
I got you.
Mr. DeVille, no, move. Do we have special effects? That's for sure. Don't trust me anywhere near the
Morning.
How are you doing?
Good, good to see you.
Yeah? Well, man, he left me and left you too.
Oh no, so he
No.
There you go.
Yeah, he resigned like a couple weeks after last year. He just said, no.
I was thinking it was just
I went back to his old job. Yeah, whatever. Right, that's what he said.
Ruins on the floor!
Good morning, guys. Our next train is taking your seats right away so we can begin the film. We're going to start our skipping agenda in 2 minutes.
I know, I did too.
If you're near the doors, please head to the room all the way so the people behind you can get in as well.
I can't even say it with a straight face.
All right, for those of you who are just entering the room, please make your way all the way in the room. Take your seats. We're going to start in just 2 minutes. I think the PA system. Yeah. I have to pre-apologize because I left the office at 10:30 last night printing all the scripts, and I... Test, test. Test. Yeah, okay. I got some principals involved in hurting people, so... Right, yeah. I go over and check, yeah, they haven't changed their mind.
There are a lot of people outside still. We've been yelling at people.
I don't...
How much time until we start? Next year, let's remember both.
Oh, we did the
Everyone said hello to us. We have them everywhere. I know. Sit around. Yeah.
Well, Brad was.
I want to let
All right, we're getting started. Please take your seats, and we're going to have our student MCs start the program.
Good morning, everyone. If you could please take your seats. Good morning and welcome to the 2024-2025 All Staff Welcome Back Orientation.
Good morning. Our student keynote's ready to start speaking, but you can't hear her. So we're going to ask the room to please bring the volume down to 0 or 1. Okay. I need everyone to please bring your volume down so our student keynote can begin speaking. Okay.
Good morning and welcome to the 2024-2025 All-Staff Welcome Back Orientation. My name is Ren Brown. I'm a Santa Clara senior at Santa Clara High School and the student trustee of the district school board and the MC for today's ceremony. Thank you for McDonald's High School Condors.
All right, everybody, listen up. Everybody stop talking in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Voices off, please. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the 2024. Good morning. Welcome to the 2024-2025 All-Staff Welcome Back Orientation. My name is Ren Brown, a Santa Clara High School senior and the student trustee on the district school board, and I will be your MC for today's ceremony. Thank you for McDonald High School Condors for opening up your campus for us on this special day. We will begin today's ceremony with the Pledge of Allegiance. Can everyone please stand and face the flag behind me? Or this one up here. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance Thank you. You can take a seat. Next, I would like to recognize our special music teachers from across the district who planned and performed our entry music and will return to perform songs for your enjoyment during our staff appreciation event later this morning. Let's give them a round of applause and a loud cheers. Thank you for the work to prepare for today's events. Throughout the ceremony, you will be introduced to special guests seated near the stage. First, we would like to introduce our school's district board of trustees. As I call your name, stand and give an audience a wave. First, Vicki Fairchild. Vice President Bonnie Lieberman. Clerk Jim Canova. Trustee Albert Gonzalez. Trustee Jody Muirhead. Trustee Andy Ratterman. And Trustee Michelle O'Ryan. Now I invite President Fairchild up to the stage to share her welcome.
Good morning! Woo! How are we today? This is awesome! I have a confession to make. I've really needed this welcome back, and I'll tell you why. Some staff already know this. My oldest is going to be a freshman. And for those of you who have gone through this is worse than kindergarten. And at kindergarten, despite my background in educational training, I had to be kicked off the kindergarten playground by Mrs. Hayes at Ponderosa, who had to say very nicely, Vicki, it's time to leave. So I'm just making a blanket announcement to everyone at Wilcox. You have my permission to say, Vicki, it's time to leave. Okay? Now, with all of those anxieties of a parent, it's made me reflect, seriously reflect on everything I hope that you're going to give my children, 8th and 9th graders, and all the other children in our school district. And it starts with acceptance and a belief in their potential. And if you can help me give my girls that and all the other kids that, we're going to make it. Thank you, thank you, thank you for being you, and have a great year.
Thank you, President Fairchild. Next, I would like to introduce and welcome to the stage our district labor partner leaders who would like to share their welcome. First, we have David Grant, Santa Clara Federations of Teachers President, Lynn Villarreal, Classified School Employees Association Chapter 350 President, Margie Wazaki, United Teachers of Santa Clara President, and Donnell Sontag, a Santa Clara Unified Management Association President.
Good morning. As most of you know, by the way, please don't ever tell me, Lynn, it's time to leave. But I'd like to say welcome to everyone. I'm Lynn Villarreal, the chapter president of the California School Employees Association here in Santa Clara. I look forward to collaborating with all of you as we continue the ever-deepening partnership of our unions, management, and district leaders. In June, and there's a picture up there from it somewhere, if you were looking earlier, at a conference regarding the labor management partnerships, it was apparent to me that our partnership is a very strong, if not perfect one. Other school districts approached me and said that our district is a shining example, an encouraging model that inspires them to strive for better. We know that the important work of education is never done and is constantly evolving, so together we will continue to strive toward our district goals. Goals that will provide every single student with the best opportunities to achieve their dreams and to continue on their chosen paths to become happy and successful. Together, let's continue to work together toward this goal, and welcome back!
Thank you, Lynn. Good morning. My name is David Grant. I am the AFT president of the Adult Ed Teachers Bargaining Unit, SCFT. Warm greetings to everyone here. I just want to say that it's your presence that makes this day special. It's good to see such a lively audience. And as we begin, I just want to remind everyone that how each of us brings various, perspectives in what we do, and how important those perspectives are that lead to solutions that help us unlock the infinite potential of every learner. And so I want to continue on making this day great and making this school year unforgettable. And
Good morning, my name is Donnell, and I have the honor of representing the Santa Clara Unified Management Association this year as president. I'd like to reconfirm our commitment to collaboration with our labor partners and creating an environment in which our students' success and well-being is our main focus. Your dedication and hard work is the foundation of our achievements, and together we will make a meaningful difference in the lives of our students. Thank you for your unwavering commitment and dedication. Let's have an amazing year.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Margie Wysocki, and I'm the current president of United Teachers of Santa Clara. I've been a teacher now for just shy of 25 years. Every year I've had the same goal: find your balance. To be honest, I never achieved that goal. But my lab puppy, Sadie, helps me find balance every day. I told you about Sadie last year and how she helped me find gratitude. Here's Sadie now. I know, all 63 pounds of her. Just look at those eyes. What a sweet face. That behind her is my DIY vacuum cleaner cord that I had to reassemble, and for the vacuum cleaner that never gets put away. Because it's this sweet face that helps me find balance when I come home to this. And it's this chaos that helps me find balance, or this chaos that leads me to appreciate the calm face, sweet face. Chaos, calm. Appreciate both. It's really all about balance. So as you move into the next few weeks, find your balance. I hope you have a great school year. Thank you so much for all of what you do.
Thank you for your warm welcomes. Also, adorable dog. Very cute. Next, I invite on the stage our Superintendent, Dr. Gary Waddell, for his address and introduction to our guest speaker.
Thank you, Ren. Welcome back, everyone. It is great to see everyone here today, starting this new year. That's going to be our best year yet. We all come together and stand together on the cusp of this new year with so many notable accomplishments in our rearview mirror, and yet a year ahead of us filled with opportunity and promise. Just imagine what we're going to accomplish together for our kids this year. I'd like to begin this morning by introducing our executive cabinet. It's my honor to work with this team to support you and our students. Deputy Superintendent Mark Scheel, please stand. Chief Academic and Innovation Officer Brad Stam. Assistant Superintendent of Ed Services Kathy Knavel. Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources Jose Gonzalez. Executive Director of Schools, Alyssa Meltzer, and Jen DeRico, Director of Communications, and coordinator of this morning. I'd also like to thank the many individuals who worked so hard to make this morning happen. Events like today take many, many hands and minds and a lot of work, and I want to can we all give the team that put together this morning together a hand? Thank you, thank you. So here we are at the start of a new year. Last year we saw a lot of accomplishments. We introduced a new equity framework, selection of phonics materials for elementary schools, new math pathways for secondary schools, a new strategic arts plan, a host of awards and honors, and a renewed commitment to our labor management partnership, work that we hold at the heart of who we are as a district. Not to mention logging over 33,000 acts of kindness in our kindness campaign. I'm very proud of that. Give yourselves a hand. That's 33,000 acts when students, staff, and community made someone's day just a little brighter, extended kindness and compassion. Whatever we accomplish on other measures, we can't overstate what that means in the lives of those who were the recipients of those acts, as well as the impact on those doing the acts, and for shifting who we are as a district and what it means to teach and learn in SCUSD. I'm very proud of that work and our team. Did you know that we won a national award last year for our kindness campaign? Now that's some radical kindness. I'm very proud of that work. But none of the things we accomplished were easy. In fact, most were complex and difficult. But we did them because we focused our energies, rolled up our sleeves, and worked together in common purpose to do things that make SCUSD the truly special place that it is. And I know one thing, there is no one outside of us who is going to make the change happen for our students. It's us. It's our teachers, our paraeducators, our principals, our managers, our facilities, our fiscal, transportation, child nutrition, all of us coming together to make SCUSD a special place that is transformative in the lives of our young people. Whether we sink or swim, we do it together. Here in this moment, marking the start of a new school year, I am keenly feeling this moment of opportunity before us. We are the hope and the promise of our children and youth. And while we stand on notable successes, we also have work before us. Our achievement isn't yet where we know it can be, particularly the achievement of historically underserved populations, children of color, children living in poverty, English learners, children with learning differences, amongst others. I'm issuing us all a challenge this year. Let's link arms and hold this clear focus that we're going to close this opportunity gap, a gap in opportunity that manifests in an achievement gap. And I know we can do this because we've done whatever we set our minds to. And we know one thing: potential and talent are equally distributed, but opportunity is not. Our district theme is unlocking the infinite potential of every learner, and that is our work, and it's noble work, work that can shift the trajectory of life for children and youth. And I want us all to know that we are here in service of that. Whether you are on the front lines interacting with students every day or working behind the scenes to support our district, it is our shared work, and we can be the difference in ensuring that we have schools that are welcoming and in which every student finds their place and expands their horizons, where we hold high academic expectations and challenge ourselves to do whatever it takes to support all of our young people to achieve them. We only have to look at our data to see bright spots across the district. And while we are committed to raising the bar for all of our students, it's clear that bringing focus to a problem before us works. You will each be looking at your own data as sites this year, and every site has things to celebrate and areas to grow. And I invite you to engage with enthusiasm and opportunity in that work. We're bringing a focus this year on increasing the achievement of all students while drastically accelerating the achievement of our Latina youth. In fact, we are in for a treat this morning as we have one of our country's premier practitioners and thinkers in this space with us. And we are approaching this work in new ways. For example, last year, we launched our Advancing Latino Achievement and Success, or ALAS project. ALAS seemed an appropriate title for the project as it translates to wings in Spanish, and this project is about giving our students wings to soar. In it, we took the conversation to our youth, to our Latina youth, and asked them questions. What makes a difference in schooling for you? What gets in the way? ALAS is an opportunity for us to apply our district's equity framework to more deeply understand systemic issues that promote or inhibit students' achievement and success. And students had a lot to say about what we do well, things that make a difference for them, such as supportive relationships, the importance of personal and academic achievements, leveraging students' bilingual abilities, creating multicultural environments, and importantly, supportive educators. They also shared what's challenging for them or gets in the way, things such as language barriers, experiences of racism and bias, the impact of academic pressure and anxiety, and the need for greater cultural representation and inclusion. These are just a few of the things our students told us from their own experiences. We'll be expanding this project this year to more school sites to see what our students can teach us about how to best reach and teach them. And here's the thing. I know that we have everything that we need to make the difference. Over the past couple of years, I've heard story after story of kids who were reached, stories of those of you who were making connection with kids in transformative ways, refusing to give up on them, stories about how our shared work around kindness made schools that were not only rigorous, but were also supportive and encouraged effort, even when that might fall short of some bar, and grounded in the innate worth and humanity of every single young person who walks through our doors. That is what inspires me and tells me that together we can accomplish whatever we put our minds to. That is your magic, and it's the work before us, and it's an exciting moment to be on the cusp of a new year to engage in that work. So as we launch this new year, if you're new to SCUSD, welcome. You are part of something truly special, a community of learners who are committed to changing children's lives for the better. You are part of a community that works to support one another, that understands that failure is an essential part of growth, and that is about being kind to one another, and believes first and foremost in the unlimited potential of every learner who walks through our doors. Rebecca Peterson, 2023 National Teacher of the Year, reminded us of this critical work, and I'd like to borrow some of her words. How whenever you ask a student to say something in their native language, you are helping a newcomer trade shame for dignity. How you understand that classrooms are not just four walls, but are places where dreams are born. How you embrace the student who comes to school with clean clothes or from a secure home, just as you embrace those who are unable to do so. How you know when to praise the smallest of victories and when to push for better work. How you make your classrooms a place of welcome. How you don't know when there's a student who's at the end of their rope, who might be about to give up, who is dealing with life circumstances none of us could even imagine, yet keep showing up because your classroom is a safe space that welcomes them and nurtures them and celebrates them for being just who they are. How you pick up pieces of broken pencils as well as broken dreams. How you teach place value at the same time you teach every child their own innate value. How at the end of the every day, that's ultimately why we're here. And I see you and I see the difference we're making every day. The promise of public schools is immense. Our doors are wide open for every child, and through them they will find opportunity, a place to be just who they are, and find someone in this room who believes in their infinite potential and who will be the person who changes the trajectory of their lives, and who many years from now they will look back and talk about you as the person that made a difference in their lives. There's no more noble work than that, and I'm proud to stand beside you as we embark on that this new year. I wish you each a wonderful school year. Thank you. So to kick us off on the work before us this year, we are fortunate to have two very special guests with us this morning to talk with us more about the opportunity of creating spaces of welcoming and belonging to help Latina youth unlock their potential. First, please help me welcome to the stage ALAS participant in Santa Clara High School Junior, Daisy Lopez, to share her story about what has inspired her as a student.
Good morning, everyone. I am so excited to be here with you all today. It means a lot to me to have the opportunity to share my personal journey with you. Through it, I carry a special request for you to take the time this school year to get to know the personal stories and dreams of the students around you, get to know them by their name, and make sure each one of them knows you believe in their potential. It can make all the difference in them believing in themselves and reaching for their fullest potential here at our district. It's true for me, and I'd like to share a bit more about me and what has contributed to my potential and dreams being unlocked. Before I talk about what educators have done to unlock my potential, I'd like to start by telling you first about my family, who are my major motivators in life. My family is here with me today, seated in the front row, and this is a very proud moment for all of us. When I think about what contributes to my motivations in school and my future aspirations, one thing that stands out to me the most is that I want to make my parents proud of who their little girl has and will become. They worked incredibly hard despite having limited opportunities. They accomplished a lot in life. They gave me an amazing childhood. My parents, despite not having the opportunity to go to school themselves, tried their hardest to help me when I needed the help. My parents are from El Salvador and Mexico. They moved from their home countries with the hope of finding a better life here in the U.S. Their native language is Spanish, and even today they struggle with English. They received limited education back at home where it was not a priority in the realities of their daily lives. One of my most cherished memories from when I was younger was my parents staying up late to help me with my homework. Though none of us understood the English language when I started elementary school, their efforts and dedication to my education were incredibly sweet and inspired my own efforts. From an early age, these memories stuck with me and motivated me to work hard and persevere through challenges in school. Seeing how far I've come makes me so proud. And lastly, from an early age, my aspiration has always been to become a teacher. Seeing the way that teachers had a positive impact in my life made me realize I want to be that person as someone. They helped me and gave me the support I needed, and it motivated me to want to be a mentor to those kids who felt the same way I once did, alone. My goal now, during my time at Santa Clara High and my future as a teacher, is to help those kids who don't always have the support they need growing up and let them know they aren't alone. to help them see that others believe in their potential and will help remove barriers to achieve their goals and success. Last school year, I reached one of my greatest accomplishments. I was reclassified as a fluent English speaker. Thank you. A significant milestone considering my early age struggles. When I think about how educators have contributed to building my internal motivations and aspirations for the future, a few examples stand out to me. Ms. Magaña being one teacher that had a really big impact in my life. She made sure every student felt included and even included parents by telling them in what specific ways they could support their children from home. She created a classroom for students to be themselves and continue to strive in both home and English languages. This, from a very early age, made me feel a sense of belonging. Her encouragement to embrace each student in their own different ways gave me the confidence to become who I am today and taught me to be kind and compassionate to others. Another educator that stands out to me is Mr. Llamas, my freshman year Spanish teacher. He helped me see the potential I didn't know I had when I began to falter. He knew with extra support I could push through the challenges I faced and set myself up better for success. He pushed not only me, but other students to strive for their very best and make sure he knew he believed in us. He often held one-on-one sessions with students to provide additional support and advice. His dedication to help students like me really encouraged me and others to succeed. And last spring, I was asked to participate in the district's Advancing Latino Achievement and Success, or ALAS research project. Being included in the ALAS project was a really big deal to me. For the first time, I felt like my voice was being heard. As a young girl, I was rarely able to tell people my personal opinion without them thinking I was dumb for thinking a certain way. And now, having the chance to talk about my experience in the focus group and with all of you today makes me realize that my opinion does matter to you. Through the ALAS project, thank you. Through the ALAS project, I realized I had many opportunities that others didn't have. In the group, students shared that they often felt that adults were judging students. They want adults to recognize that negative experiences such as bullying from peers or feeling judged by teachers can have lasting impacts on a student's self-esteem and mental health. Ultimately, negative impacting whether their potential and achievements will unlock during their time here at SCUSD. On behalf of all students, especially Latino students, I ask for all adults at SCUSD to ensure that every student feels seen, heard, and valued, and to also provide additional language support for English language learners. Teachers and staff can contribute to a student's sense of belonging by avoiding making assumptions about a student's abilities and potential based on their background, appearance, or current performance levels. I believe each student, given the chance to prove themselves without bias, can truly thrive, and I believe all of you with those opportunities can unlock their potential. From what I've seen in the years that I've been in school, the slightest amount of motivation from an adult can make a very big difference in a student's life. My life and personal outcomes are a prime example of this. Finally, I ask for you to participate in trainings with an open mind. Try to, from the heart, better understand the challenges that these Latino students find their way to be and help them and their families be able to access resources offered. Often, families like mine don't know how to get involved or find resources with the school because the access tend to be in one language, English. Providing additional support and adjustments to make them feel included will increase their chances of succeeding in the upcoming years. Thank you for listening to my story and considering my request. I hope you have a wonderful 2024 through 2025 school year. See you next Tuesday.
Good job.
Thank you, Daisy, for kicking us off in such an inspirational way. We are so proud of you. I'd like to again recognize Daisy and her family. Let's give them another hand. And we look forward to the day you're a teacher here in SCUSD. We'll be waiting for you. I am so pleased to announce our keynoter this morning. As you have heard, we are focusing on closing the opportunity gap. That's our laser focus. And we are very fortunate to have with us a national leader in the work of helping educators unlock the infinite potential of Latino youth. He's spoken to educators across the nation and the world, and we're fortunate to have him with us this morning. Drawing upon 30 years of teaching and global research, Dr. Jeff Duncan Andrade will share insights crucial for educators and leaders. His 2022 book, Equality or Equity Toward a Model of Community Responsive Education, offers a roadmap for systemic change, building programs, and educational strategies. Jeff Duncan Andrade, PhD, is Associate Professor at San Francisco State University. He's also the founder of Roses and Concrete Community School, a community responsive lab school in East Oakland. Teaching Excellence Network, and works with schools and districts around the world to develop and support effective classroom and school cultures. As a classroom teacher and school leader in East Oakland for the past 24 years, his pedagogy has been widely studied and acclaimed for producing uncommon levels of social and academic success for students. Jeff lectures around the world and has authored 2 books and numerous journal articles on effective practices in schools. In 2015, he became a National Commission on Teacher and America's Future Commissioner, and was part of the great educators invited to the White House by President Obama in 2016. Duncan Andrade has been ranked as one of the 100 most influential scholars in Ed Week for the past 2 years. His transformational work on the elements of effective teaching in schools serving poor and working class children is recognized throughout the US and as far abroad as Brazil and New Zealand. He works closely with teachers, school leaders, union leaders, and school district officials. And let me just add that as I shared with him this morning, it's been a treat to follow his work over the years that is inspiring and helping move our profession closer toward really achieving equity in the daily work that we do. Please join me in giving a huge SCUSD welcome to Dr. Jeff Duncan Andrade.
That's power, y'all. You feel it? All right. Bear with us for a sec. We just got to do a quick AV check.
Late April. Ren Swader comes.
Yep, we're good. Cool. Right on, brother. Appreciate you. What's going on, y'all? Well, I'll tell you right now, Santa Clara is better than Fresno. I was in Fresno yesterday, and when I said that, like 2 people were like, hey. So it's good to be back in the Bay. This is a pretty dope event. Anytime there's a bio, it's automatically outdated the second it gets read. So this is actually now my 30th year serving my community in East Oakland. And I can tell you in 30 years, we ain't never had nothing like this. So this is really dope to be a part of this, and I appreciate the opportunity to come and share some palabra with you. I'll just start by saying that's my email, and if the stuff that I share today resonates with you, if there's ways that I can support you on your journey to provide the young people the things that this young sister here was just telling us about, please don't hesitate to reach out. I'm happy to share this slide deck with you if it's helpful, if there's resources in here that you want to dip into. I return every email I get. If I don't return your email, it means my son's deleted it. So that became a thing for me over COVID because they suddenly had way more access to my laptop. But seriously, if you don't hear back from me, please just email me again, bubble it up to the top of my inbox, and I will get back to you. If you send me the classic 3-page teacher email, then I'll just reply with my cell phone and we can make some time to chop it up over the phone because I'm not responding to a 3-page email. So the talk that I was asked to come do today is actually based on my third book, which was released in 2022 with Harvard Press, and it's the same title. It's right here. It's the same title as the talk. So if there's stuff that, again, comes up in the talk, you know, in a talk, like, you condense, right? But in a book, you can really spread out. And so a lot of the resources and references that I'll try to share with you today are also available in that. But this talk precedes the book, and I started doing this talk several years ago because I kept getting invited to things like this, where, you know, suddenly, you know, districts all over the country were all about equity. And to begin this equity journey, right, all these districts and CMOs were starting with an equity strategic plan. And so they asked me to be thought partner on their strategic plan. And so I'm reading all these strategic plans from, like, some of the largest districts in the country to, like, single high school districts. And the frequency with which I saw these two terms used interchangeably in those plans was deeply troubling to me. Because I really do think that equity is the right move for us. But if we are going to pursue equity, we have to first understand why a 70-year commitment to equal education, which begins with the Brown v. Board decision in 1954, right? So this is the 70th anniversary of Brown, okay? And if we're going to pivot to equity, away from a national commitment to so-called equal education in this country, then we got to understand why we're doing that, right? Why isn't that 70-year commitment to an equal education system in this country producing the pluralistic, multiracial democracy that we've promised our nation? Because you don't just pivot to something else unless you understand why you're leaving the path that you're on. Otherwise, when you get on that new path, you'll be making the same mistakes you made on the old path. Okay? So just for a quick history lesson around this nation's public school project. So when it began, which precedes 1954, right? When this nation decides that it's going to have a public school system for all school-aged kids, was it equal? Did everybody have equal access? Okay? No, right? So who was it designed for? Okay, white people? Okay, white men? Okay, all white men? Okay, no, some white men, right? So folks that we would now consider white were not part of the original design project, right? Eastern Europeans were not allowed to attend U.S. public schools. The Irish were not allowed to attend U.S. because they were not considered white. And then, right, as they started including them, right, the project changed a little. And then, you know, back then they didn't cover it up with the way in which they named things. So they developed a series of schools called Americanization schools, whose project was to Americanize, right, which was code for take Eastern European children from their families, because the public national narrative was that Eastern European culture was deficient and that their language was needed to be reacculturated, right? That their cultural practices, the way they raised their children, needed to be changed in order for them to fit into a white Anglo-Saxon, Protestant, heterosexual, English-speaking framework. And so we developed schools to do that, and they were literally called Americanization schools. Okay? And so goes the journey, right, of the place where we do this work. This is why Malcolm X said, of all the forms of study, the one that's most likely to reward your efforts is the study of history, because the truth is always lying there. So when you start really doing this work in community, right, with the most vulnerable ones, with the most wounded ones, And you start feeling this incredible cognitive dissonance in your mind and in your body because you know what you need to do, but the systems and the structures don't necessarily support you to do that in a consistent way. Hey, that's where you understand the ground that you stand on. It's a historical imperative that is making this shift so challenging for us. And if you understand that, okay, then you can be healthier even in a place of cognitive dissonance. But if you don't understand that, that tension begins to really pull you away from your sacredness, from your sacred path, from your sacred purpose, right? The original dreams that brought you into this high-paying job that you chose. So we get to a conversation, right, about equality or equal schools, right, in 1954. Right? That's 7 decades ago. So let's and part of that project was, right, the Brown decision was a decision in response to a Supreme Court decision, right? So Brown v. Board was a response to Plessy versus Ferguson, one of the most egregious decisions made by the U.S. Supreme Court, which legalized racial segregation. Okay, so a lot of people think that racial segregation in the United States was just kind of like de facto, right? It was just a bunch of racist, bad white actors in the South that owned slaves. Okay, when in fact, racial segregation was the law of the land via Plessy versus Ferguson. So the highest policy body in the land, the Supreme Court, said that this is a nation that supports racial segregation. So Brown, on its face, is a response to that, right? Brown, at least that's what I thought when I was teaching, because I never actually read the Brown decision, even though the Brown decision may be the single most important piece of legislation for our field. But for this book, I actually read the Brown decision, and I met with legal scholars to try and understand it at a deeper level. And what was so interesting to me was that the Brown decision is silent on Plessy. Now, normally when the Supreme Court levies a decision in response to a previous decision, it will write into the decision that this decision overturns this previous decision. Brown does not, which means that technically Plessy is still law. Plessy is still on the books. And that's why Brown has been so light in impact. So let's play a little Price is Right, okay? Brown decision says that separate is by definition unequal. And with all deliberate speed, we will desegregate our nation's public schools and other, right, public spaces. So that's 70 years ago, right? So how much progress do you think we've actually made at racially desegregating public schools in the U.S.? Just throw your bids out. 5%, 20%, 80%, 60%. Okay? I don't know what this means. You can't bid this in Price is Right. Okay? That's not technically a bid. Give 10. Okay, I got 10. Negative? You can't bid negative in Price is Right. What's going on in Santa Clara? Hey, you're actually right though. Okay? There's a guy named Gary Orfield. He's a professor at UCLA. He's a lawyer by training, but Gary's arguably one of the best educational historians we have in the United States. And he has a project called the UCLA Civil Rights Project, and every 10 years, every decade, they release a report that examines our national progress on Brown, and specifically on desegregating schools. So this is the 70th year. The report should be coming out soon, right? But the most recent data we have, hey, shows that public schools in the United States are more racially segregated now than before Brown. Hey, you're right, we've gone backwards. Okay? And that, y'all, is the value of a policy. Okay, we won't policy our way out of this. We will people our way out of this. We will practice our way out of this. Now, that doesn't mean policy doesn't matter. Okay, of course policy matters. Like, ask anybody the group. I'm back. I might have been able to carry this room with my teacher voice, but then when I got out of here, I wouldn't be able to talk anymore, so I'll stick with the mic. So, ask anybody that grew up in the Gym South, right, if the Brown decision matters. Hell yeah, the Brown decision matters, right? But if we only have policy and no attention to people and practice, then we've just got pomp and circumstance, which essentially is what Brown ends up being. So, you know, I'm in a room full of educators right now, so y'all would know this answer, but if we just walked out in the street and just talked to, you know, random person on the street and we asked them, are the schools that serve poor and working class children, children of color, equal to the schools that serve middle class and wealthy white children, right? To a person, everybody would be like, no. And yet, right, that's the law of the land. So the attention that we're needing to give has to be foundational. How many of you own a home? Okay, wow, y'all pay people here. Shoot. I made a joke in Fresno because like everybody raised their hand. I was like, yeah, if I ask that question in the Bay Area, it's going to be like 2 people that raise their hand. That's going to be the superintendent and the associate superintendent. But apparently I'm wrong because, shoot, I should have been working in Santa Clara all these years. I don't know any Oakland teachers that own homes. So when you bought your home, 80% of room, excluding like first and second year teachers, when you bought your home, what was the first thing you had inspected? The foundation. Okay? Well, why not the double pane windows? Why not the HVAC system? Why not the state-of-the-art kitchen? Why not the new hardwood floors? Why you start with the foundation? You can't even see the thing. Why you start with it? Right. If you don't have a good foundation, hey, everything else you pour into that house is throwing good money after bad. It's all going down through those cracks in the foundation that you didn't fix, and that's what we do in schools. We have a foundational problem in schools. And so we buy new literacy programs, and we buy Eureka Math, right? And we buy Smarter Balanced, right? And we buy laptop programs and iPad programs for all. And then we look at the data in June, and it looks just like last June, and just like last June before that, and just like last June before that, because we've got a foundational problem. Okay? And that's the equity work. The equity work isn't program, it's people. Okay, programs won't save us. Okay? We're going to be the people that rework the foundation, which means it's going to be painful. Foundation work is hard. It's dirty. It's muddy. It's messy. But the meaning's in the mess. So if we're going to make this pivot from what is essentially Sesame Street, equality is Sesame Street stuff. It's one for you, one for me. One for you, one for me. That's equality. We're talking about equity. Equity's calculus. It's complex. It requires us to be dynamic and responsive. And so I'm not promising you a simple, easy journey. I'm promising you the journey that our ancestors expected us to take when we became educators. Now, fortunately for me, in this project of trying to understand this pivot from equality to equity, hey, I've had a live experiment in my home. Because I have twins. Right? So these two are equal in every possible way that two human beings can be equal. They were born in C-section, so it was like baby A, baby B. Right? Amaru is 60 seconds older than Tayari, and he lords it over him. He's like, I am your older brother. Now, fortunately for Tayari, he's 30 pounds heavier. So the lording doesn't work for too long. Okay. So these two are equal in every way. And yet, Amaru is constantly thirsty. When this dude was younger, he literally used to walk around the house with a straw and just try to like stick it into stuff and extract liquid. Okay. In this case, he hit the jackpot because he got a coconut. And Tayari is constantly hungry. So much so that this dude literally stores food on his shirt for later snacking. This is a picture of us literally first time we made it out of the house. Anybody in here have multiples? Anybody? Okay, so you will know exactly what I'm talking about. Everybody else won't really get this. But do you see how big he is? That is the first time we made it out of the house. Because when you have multiples, you don't take the zoo outside. You let people come see the zoo, right? But you ain't going out with the zoo. Okay, so we finally make it out. We're at a place called Lake Merritt, which those of you that are from, been to the East Bay, so you know where Lake Merritt is. So we're out at Lake Merritt, right? It's a place we gather, chill, right? So we're out there, and community members walking by. I'm like, hey, this is the first time we made it out of the house. Can you take a photo of us? It snaps this photo, hands it back to me, and I'm looking at my phone, and I'm like, what the hell is that? I said, Tayari, come here, son, come here. Tayari comes over, and that is bark from that tree. So when I tell you my son is constantly hungry, we're literally talking about a dude that takes bark off trees and eats it. In this context, is this equal? Okay, you're shaking your head no, right? Yeah, that's what happens when you sit in the front and shake your head aggressively. What's your name? Alyssa. Why you say that's not equal? Okay, she says because they need different things. One needs water and one needs food. Uh-huh. But why does that make it not equal? Because you're giving them the same thing and that's not, what, you want to change your answer now? Yeah, classic. Classic. Oh, now it's equal. Uh-huh. You see how I helped you out there? How I helped you work through your own thinking without giving you the answer? Yeah, that's 30 years. Of course this is equal. This is the dictionary definition of equal. But Alyssa, your problem, like mine, is that when you looked at my babies, when you looked at my sons, and you looked at that question, you didn't answer from here. You answered from here, and you answered from here. And because you went here and here first, what you did was you changed the question. Because you knew that that's the wrong question. And so what you did is you changed this to, is this fair? And of course, the answer to that, based on the story I just told you, is no. But it is the dictionary definition of equal. And if you look up equal in the dictionary, there is no reference to the term fair or fairness, because it is implied. But in the most radically unequal and inequitable of all of the global democracies, to talk about an equal education system just doesn't make any sense. It ignores our origins as a nation, it ignores our historical past, and it ignores our present day. So pivoting off of an equal education system makes absolute sense given all of those things, as long as we name, own, and address all of those things. And to do that, right, we have to create an equitable system. Now, my sons are pissed because I keep using that picture of them. And they're like, Dad, we don't even look like that anymore. So finally, about, 4 months ago, I inserted this slide. Okay, this is them now. They're 11. They've just finished 5th grade at the community school that we started. They're about to start middle school, and I think they look exactly the same. You can judge for yourself. So, y'all are data-driven, right? You a data-driven district? Okay, dope. Yeah, it's not a trick question. Okay? I think being data-driven is really important. Okay, now I got up this morning, and I drove here, and I'd never been here before, so I had to use navigation. So to get from my house in East Oakland to this event, I had to put an address into Waze. Now, how does Waze read that? When I put an address in, what does Waze read the address as? It reads it as data. Okay, now what would have happened if I put the wrong address in? Yeah, he'd still be up here. He'd have generate a random keynote to hold on and be like, where is this dude? And I'd be somewhere else. But I'd still be data-driven. It's not about being data-driven. It's about being driven by the right data. So if you keep ending up in the same wrong place with the same group of students, change the data you're looking at. Because when you change the data you look at, it changes the questions you ask. And when you change the questions you ask, it changes the answers you come up with. And if you still end up in the same wrong place after looking at new data, what do you know about the data that you put in? It's still the wrong data, right? So keep shifting, keep responding. That's what it means to respond to the material conditions of a community. Hey, if I ended up in the wrong place, it's not Waze's fault. It's user error. Hey, we continually make user error in the way in which we approach being data-driven in schools. So let's look at some data. Okay, 7 decades as a nation, we've committed to an equal education system. Let's see what it's gotten us. Not long before Arne Duncan left office, no relation, and for those of you who don't remember him, he was the Secretary of Education under Obama. Okay, so highest ranking education official in the country. And he's all over national media lauding himself and his administration for creating the highest ever high school graduation rate in the history of the United States. Now, at the time, I'm teaching high school English literature at Fremont High School in Deep East Oakland. Fremont High School is my neighborhood high school. It's the high school that my sons will naturally matriculate to when they get to that level. At the time, we had about a 50% graduation rate and about a 1% CSU UC eligibility rate. So I'm working in that context, right, while hearing the highest ranking education official in the country say we're doing better than ever. So I'm having a deep moment of cognitive dissonance. And so we went and got Arne's data and we remapped it. And all we did was control for one thing: income. We didn't even look at race. Hey, we didn't look at immigration status. We didn't look at language. We didn't look at anything but income. And this is the high school graduation map for middle and high income kids in the country. And probably doesn't shock anybody that at least on its face, right, those kids are doing pretty well, hey, all over the country. That is the high school graduation map for low income kids. The group of kids that can least afford to fail in our public school system are failing coast to coast, tip to finish, edge to edge, top to bottom. And I know what you're thinking. Texas? Hey, look, Texas cheats. No, for real. This is actually also historical fact. So you may, if you've been at it as long as I have, you may remember that the Secretary of Education under Bush was the former Secretary of Education for the state of Texas, who was attributed to him was the so-called Texas Miracle. This was the highest test score gain over the course of a year by any state ever, right? Comes to be known as the Texas Miracle. So he gets then promoted to become the Secretary of Education for the United States. But there was an investigative reporter who was like, well, A, there are no miracles, and B, there are definitely no testing miracles in Texas. So he starts poking around, and what he found was the key to the Texas Miracle was buses. Because the Secretary of Education at the time in Texas had created a special fund for all of the districts that had high numbers of language learners. And on the day of the test, they were to use those funds to rent buses. And the children were placed on those buses and sent to amusement parks. And that is how they got the highest test score gains ever. So that's why he had to leave the Secretary of Education position in the United States under infamy, and somehow we forgot about all that. Oh, and just for kicks, one time I did this talk in Kentucky, and this teacher raises his hand. He's like, "What about Kentucky?" And I was like, "I don't know." There's always anomalies in data, right? And the thing about data is that, you know, Arne had one story about that same data, which was a totally different story than my story. Okay? And one of my other problems is that I'm trained as a researcher, which means I know how to collect data, right? I know how to read and analyze data, and I know how to display data. And I know that I can take any data set, and depending on how I display it to you, I can tell you 5 different stories. Okay? So be wary of data as absolute, okay? And make sure that data is connected to narrative, that you're ground truthing the data to really understand what it means for the children and families we serve. Here's some more data for us. This is our national wealth distribution data. The United States are the global champs at wealth inequality. In point of fact, we're not only the global champs, we're the historical champs. No nation in the history of the world, when we have measured wealth inequality, has had a larger wealth gap than we currently have. So 70 years of an equal education system has produced the most unequal distribution of wealth ever. And what's even more twisted is that the gap is growing. We're trending the wrong way. This is our national incarceration data. We're not only the global champs at wealth inequality, we're also the global champs at locking up our own citizens. No nation incarcerates more of its people per capita than the United States. In point of fact, Russia is a distant second to us. There's a great website put out by Mother Jones called Debt to Society that tracks prison investments and prison rates all over the world. And this is particularly important for us to be attentive to as educators, because often that's the binary pot that gets split. Are we going to invest in prisons, or are we going to invest in schools? And we all know which direction that's been trending for quite some time. That's got to reverse if we're going to have an equitable education system and reduce the number in our prison system. This is the Global Peace Index. Okay? Now, when I started doing this research, I met with people from all kinds of different disciplines: economists, political scientists, public health officials, neuroscientists, pediatricians, psychologists, physiologists, right? Because what I was looking for was this answer to data. Right? What is the data that we should, right? What is the data that actually measures the impact of a public education system in a nation? How do we know if what we're doing is actually creating the kind of society that we say we want? And to a person, they all pointed me to the Global Peace Index. Now, the Global Peace Index is like any index. It has some stuff in there that maybe doesn't need to be in there, and it's got some stuff that probably should be in there that isn't. But as far as measurements go, this is considered the global gold standard for measuring peace, justice, democracy, and economic sustainability in 99.8% of the world's population. So basically everywhere. Okay? Now, the Global Peace Index is used by the United Nations, it's used by the World Health Organization, it's used by UNESCO. Like, this is the global standard for measuring peace, justice, democracy, and economic sustainability. And so I was like, okay, cool, I hadn't heard of it. So I started looking into it, studying it, right? And this started in 2015. It was the first year I looked at it. And I was looking for the US. And what is happening right now is what happens every time I put this slide up, which is that most of you have stopped looking at me and you've started looking at the rankings, because the US is obsessed with rankings. And like, whoa, no, we didn't make the top 15. In 2015, we were 94th. And I was like, damn, we're the Raiders. And like any good Raider fan, I was like, it's cool. That's just one bad year. We got the draft, right? We got free agency. We got Antonio Pierce, right? We'll be back to Oakland soon. Don't trip. Like, just be a Raider fan, right? Loyalty. Go buy a new hat. Go buy a new jersey. So I kept on like any good Raider fan. I watched the draft. I had hopes for great growth. In 2020, we dropped to 121st. 2022, is that a Niner fan? Don't talk sideways to me, I have the mic. 2022, we dropped to 129. 2023, we're down to 131. That, y'all, in data analysis, is called a trend. When you look at data, look at it longitudinally. Don't look at snapshots. Okay? Snapshots tell you about a snapshot. Okay? Longitudinal data tells you the direction your ship's really headed. Okay? And we're headed towards the cliff by all measurements. Right? We're in trouble as a nation. And because of the ways that we've designed our school system, right, we're pushing ourselves as a nation closer and closer to that edge, further and further away from the pluralistic, multiracial democracy we promised our children and our families. Now, how many of you know who Brian Stevenson is? You heard of Brian Stevenson? Okay, so a few of you, dope, okay? He deserves that kind of cheer. So if you don't know who Brian Stevenson is, add him to your list, okay? Brian with the Y, Stevenson with the V. He's arguably the best-known death row lawyer in the United States. No lawyer in the United States has gotten more people off death row than Brian Stevenson. He wrote a book called Just Mercy, which then became like a popular Hollywood film. So some of you probably like know him, you just don't know the name. Anyway, I shared the stage with him a few years back, and something that he told me really stuck with me when I look at data like this. And he said, you know, Jeff, the problem with the pursuit of justice and democracy and freedom in this country is not that we don't have a bunch of really smart, talented, committed people banging on it every day, because we do. This room is filled with them. He says the problem with that progress towards that goal is that so many of us that are doing that work, right, we decide that we really need an intervention for this young person. We really need to support this family. And so we get together, right, around our planning table, and we the best of our training and the best of our experience, and we put it all together, and we come up with the way that we're going to support them. And he says what we end up giving them is aspirin. And the thing about aspirin is it will temporarily relieve the symptoms of a headache, but it won't stop you from getting headaches. And so a year later, 2 years later, we're back at that same table strategizing, how are we going to continue to support this kid? How are we going to continue to support this family? Right? How are we going to change things to make this work for them? And he says the reason that happens is that we're designing our solutions for that family, for that child, based on our own worldview. And those of us in this room, we don't live at 131. Most of it's in this room. We live somewhere around 25, 30, 35, right? And we might even have grown up around 131. Like, my life experience does allow me, right, to have some sense and sensibility about what it's like at 131, but I don't live at 131 anymore. And he says the key, right, to the reaching those goals that we have of really creating a just democracy for the most vulnerable ones and the most wounded ones is we have to get proximity to the pain. And when we get proximate to that pain, we have to humble up and hush up and know that it is the people that live at 131 that know best what the people at 131 actually need. And if we listen humbly there and then come back to the place where we do the work, right, then the work is about actually implementing what they've told us what they need, as opposed to what's convenient for us to give them because it makes us feel like we're good people. Okay? And it doesn't make us bad people that we move this way, it just makes us ignorant. Okay? And solutions born out of ignorance, well, I don't need to say much about that right now, do I? So the other thing I want to point out is that we're not actually talking about solving for 131, because our most vulnerable and wounded ones don't live at 131. Think about it. If we're at 25 or 30 and the national average is 131, where does that mean the most vulnerable and wounded ones are living? Lower. Right? That's who we have to design classrooms for. That's who we have to design curriculum for. That's who we have to design school climate and culture for if we're going to be equitable.
And if it works for the kid that lives at 131, I guarantee you it works for the kid that lives at 25. But if it works for the kid at 25, I guarantee you it doesn't work for the kid that lives at 131. It's a choice. Equity's a choice. Now, fortunately, we have historical examples of when this has happened. One of them comes circa 1854 from London, England. And there's a talk of total collapse of the city. They're literally talking about shutting down London. And as a last-ditch effort to save the city officials sequester the top medical minds in all of London, stick them in a room together, and they say, y'all are not, well, they probably didn't say y'all, but whatever British people would say, okay? They said, y'all are not coming out of here until you have a solution for cholera. And so the top medical minds in London are sitting around this table, and they're knocking around all these ideas, and eventually one of them stands up. He says, this is absurd. And he said, what do you mean? He says, well, every single solution we're coming up with defaults us to cholera. And they said, yeah. He said, I didn't sign up to be a medical doctor to learn how to live with the conditions of sickness. I signed up to be a medical doctor to learn how to create the conditions of wellness. And they said to him what I hear said to teachers, school leaders, all over the country that are saying what we are doing is fundamentally flawed. We've got to tear up the foundation and do things radically different. Equity is not a soft pivot. It's a hard pivot. It is a fundamentally different, purpose-driven approach to why we work with these babies and families every day. And so the top medical minds in all of London looked back at this other medical doctor and they said, you're crazy. And he said, well, if that's what it means to be part of your medical association, I don't want to be part of your medical association. And they said, cool. They showed him the door. This medical doctor's name was John Snow. No, not that John Snow. That John Snow. So John Snow left the meeting of the top medical minds in all of London, and he hit the streets. And he became an ethnographer of the community that he served. And he got proximity to the pain. And he started collecting data. And what John Snow found, that is a researcher's dream. He found a perfect binary. He found causal. What John Snow found was that every single person in London that had cholera drank from that water fountain. And every single person that didn't. And so John Snow got a saw, and he cut off the handle, and cholera stopped. Stop drinking from the poison well of an equal education system in the most radically unequal and inequitable of all the industrialized democracies in the world. Pivot to equity. Because in an equitable system, when you're hungry, you get food. When you're thirsty, you get water. When you're hella thirsty, you get hella water. That joke goes over better in the Bay than it does in Kentucky. Like, is hella a word? It is now, fool. Because in an equitable system, you get what you need when you need it, right? That's the harder part, especially in schools. Because to be equitable, you have to be dynamic and you have to be agile. I'm in Silicon Valley, right? That's like their favorite term, right? Be agile, right? And schools are so freaking antiquated, right? You got to fill out in triplicate a request for a number 2 pencil. And then wait for 4 signatures. Like that, the whole way in which school moves, okay, has to change so that teachers can respond dynamically. You can't tell us to engage in equitable practices when you don't trust us, when you don't trust us to know what our kids need. It ain't going to happen, right? It's just going to be a strategic plan. That's the policy to practice gap that we've got to close. Now, sadly or not, hey, as I've done this research, right, I'm like, damn, I'm not onto anything new. Cats have been talking about this since 1943. I'll stake my career on this statement. There is nothing being used in this district that has the research base of Maslow. I'm in school districts all over the country all the time, and everybody's talking about being research-based and data-driven. And I absolutely think we should. Right? But there is nothing in schools, including your new phonics program, right, that has the research base of Maslow. Since 1943, cross-discipline, all those disciplines I named, public health, social epidemiology, neuroscience, pediatrics, psychology, physiology, study after study after study have affirmed, yep, Maslow's right. Okay? So when you get stuck with a child next week, and the week after that, and the week after that, and the week after that, don't send them to a mentor. Okay? Don't send them to a new program. Okay? Go to Maslow and go to the base. Okay? And then work your way up. Because what we know with absolute certainty in the medical research, in the neurobiology, is that the natural human condition, regardless of race, class, gender, sexual identity, height, weight, speed, dunking ability, hey, every single human being operates in this pyramid. And what we know with absolute certainty, hey, is that the natural human condition, keyword natural, when we live in a natural environment, okay, we self-actualize. It's what we do. The most successful students self-actualize. That's what all of us want from our students, right? The kid who we can lay it out and then they're just off and running, and oftentimes like way ahead of where we thought they could get. This, what did you call it, sis? What did you call it, sister? Young lady, yeah, you got to pay attention when I'm talking, okay? I saw you on your phone. Hey, what's the rule of phones in Santa Clara? Yeah, see, I'm always... No, okay, so what did you say? What did you call it? Infinite potential? Okay, that's infinite potential, right? We actually have medical evidence about why human beings have infinite potential. And I'll prove it to you, okay? Now, you may not remember this, but try. When you were born. Okay, when you came out the womb, what was the first thing you did? Okay, some of you cried, some of you didn't, okay? But yes, okay, you cried, why? Because you were pissed you didn't have your cell phone? Why did you cry? You cried to clear your lungs because you had fluid in it from being in your mother's womb, right? And if your fluid was cleared already, you didn't need to cry because you were going to breathe. Who told you to breathe? Your biology told you to breathe. Because we naturally self-actualize. So when kids aren't breathing, right, when they're not living into their potential, ain't nothing wrong with them. My mother's 94 years old. I'm the youngest of 7 kids, and I swear she's been teaching me this since I came out the womb. One of her favorite statements is, boy, if it ain't broke, stop trying to fix the babies. There's nothing wrong with our children. There's nothing wrong with the wounded one. Hey, they are simply mirroring back to us the unnatural conditions that they are trapped in, what Tupac calls the concrete. Okay? Our job is to bust up the concrete. Our job is to clear the obstacles for them, not change them and bend them to our will. They're perfectly fine as human beings. And the great thing about the research is it tells us exactly what they need to breathe. I don't see literacy instruction in here. I don't see Eureka Math. I don't see SBAC. Okay? Those are all lag indicators. We want to focus on the leading indicators of child development, and these are them. And the other cool thing about the research is that for 40 years, this is incredibly rare in research, for 40 years, we've had consistent agreement in the educational research about what the most effective practitioners do, regardless of space or place. They've been doing the same thing for 4 decades. And what those educators do, regardless of policy, regardless of whether you're teaching under No Child Left Behind or whatever the freaking policy is now, hey, they do these 3 things. Those are the buckets that they pour themselves into. Relationships, relevance, and responsibility. And the research bears this out time and time again for 4 decades. Now, before I get into those 3, okay, I just want to acknowledge something that is largely unacknowledged, which is that Maslow's hierarchy of needs did not come from Maslow. Maslow's hierarchy of needs came from indigenous people. It came from the Blackfeet Nation. Okay, specifically the Blackfeet's philosophy called the breath of life. So indigenous people, we also have a hierarchy of needs. We just have a different set of hierarchies and needs. So when I'm a believer, and I come from the Opata people, which connects me to Mexicayo and Mayan traditions, okay? And I love that, okay? In the teachings that I've received, right, that one of the things that we do is we believe that all people are medicine people. Okay, that all of us have medicine. My tío, Maestro Jerry Teo, who we'll talk about in a little bit, right, he teaches us, he says, la cultura cura, okay, which literally translates to the culture cures, but there's always stuff lost in translation. And what we really mean when we say la cultura cura is that your culture is your medicine. And so if you're not allowed to bring your medicine into spaces, what are you going to be? This is why so many of our children feel sick in our schools, because they're not allowed to bring their medicine, right? And if you believe that all people are medicine people, then you know everyone has medicine, and you know you have medicine, and you know that your medicine can become more powerful by virtue of your interaction with another medicine person if you mix your medicines. So I don't think Maslow is absolutely right, and I don't think the indigenous model is absolutely right for where we stand right now. I believe that we have to mix these medicines. So I want to point out a couple of things, okay, about the difference between Maslow's hierarchy of needs and the indigenous model of wellness, and so that we can think about how we need to mix our medicines with the babies. So first I'll point out about Maslow that you just look at the shape of Maslow's hierarchy and the indigenous model, okay? And what's the difference? What's Maslow's? What's his shape? Don't look inside, just tell me what the shape is. It's a pyramid or a triangle, okay? And what about the indigenous model? Right, it's a teepee, okay? Now, the one structural difference, I mean, there's many, but the one I want to point to is the top, okay? The triangle or the pyramid is closed, okay? And this is the flaw in Maslow's hierarchy of needs, is that it's an individual model of wellness. And this is what we promote in schools, okay? And so what it presumes is that you can be well when she's not. Okay? And in well communities, in healthy communities, you know that's not true, because you know that hurt people hurt people. Okay? So it's all of us or none of us. And what we don't say enough in this society is that, yes, hurt people, and healed people heal people. So we've built a school model where you can have children literally sitting right next to each other, neighbors, kids that go back to the same apartment complex, and one of them has an A and one of them has an F. That is not democratic. That is not justice. Hey, that is up by your bootstraps, rugged individualism, which is toxic to human communities. You cannot have an individual model of wellness that ignores what it means to be part of a micro ecosystem where my wellness or my pain is your wellness and your pain. And that's what the indigenous model believes. So another thing to point out, okay? Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the pinnacle is self-actualization. Where is it in the indigenous model? It's foundational. That's a trip. Huh. Like it's almost like all this stuff invisibilized for indigenous people. Why don't indigenous people talk about feeding and clothing their children? Why don't they talk about teaching them to love themselves and love their language and love the color of their skin and love the texture of their hair and love the community they come from and love their ancestors? Why don't we talk about any of that in the indigenous model? Why isn't that in there? Because duh, like you have to say you're going to feed children? Hey? Yeah. In this society, we actually do. And Maslow noticed that in 1943. If you read Maslow's early writings, right, that's why he puts it in there. Maslow says this nation is so sick We actually have to say we need to do these things. So you got to do these things. You got to understand that underneath self-actualization is the foundation. And this is the foundation of self-actualization. So you got to get down in the dirt, okay, in order to get kids to start self-actualizing. But, hey, this is where we start mixing the medicine, because Maslow stops there. We don't stop there. The question is, why do you self-actualize, son? Why do you self-actualize, daughter? Why do you learn how to read? Why do you learn how to write? Why do you study mathematics and science and exercise? And the logic that most schools give them is so that you can go to college and you can get a good job and you can participate in this unjust economy and society. And there's lots of kids who are like, damn, that's my option? Like, I get to go do that whack shit or fail? Any wonder why we have an all-time record high of suicide attempts by our children? Bad options. So, the indigenous model offers us another way, a purpose for reading, a purpose for writing that we teach our children. You study so that you can actualize your community, not your bank account. Do I want my sons to go to college? Sure, if they want. Do I want my sons to have a job? Hell yes. But for what? Why are you working? Are you in your sacred purpose as a mathematician, as a scientist, right? As a lawyer, as a business person? Hey, that's why we self-actualize, to make the community stronger, to make the community more well. And at the pinnacle of the indigenous model is cultural perpetuity. Cultural perpetuity is the concept that we pass along the best lessons from our generation. And the best lessons don't mean the nice lessons. It means the best lessons. And some of the best lessons are deeply, deeply painful. And one of the reasons why we're in the jam we are right now as a nation is because we are a dodging, ducking, and denying nation about our past and our present. We don't tell the truth about the fact that this nation is the only nation to have been built on two genocides, the genocide of indigenous people and the genocide of African people. And because we won't tell that truth and we won't teach that truth to children, we stay locked in that pain. Cultural perpetuity is about passing along all of the joy and all of the lessons from the pain to the babies, because this model is open. And it's open so that the smoke from those teachings can go out. And we don't choke on it. And it goes out and it goes into the clouds and it gets into the atmosphere. And then where does it go? It goes back to the ground in the rain. And it nurtures the next generation. Okay? That's the difference between schooling and education. When you school people, it is an institutionalization process by which you teach them their place in life. Education is the process by which you prepare people to grab the reins and own their own life and build wellness in community. Do you school people or do you educate them? That's a choice. The research around how to do this, about how to create environments that reflect these mixing of the medicines and the models is profound. Some of my favorite around relationships comes from Herb Cole. Okay, Herb wrote the book I Won't Learn From You, and he was one of the first researchers to study kids that were so-called failures in school. Okay, Herb's work came out right when I first started teaching in 1992, and all the research was looking at quote-unquote high achievers. And it was like, what do high achievers do? And then how do we make all the other kids be like high achievers? And Herb was like, that's dumb. I'm actually really interested in the kids that are coming to school and failing. Why would they do that? And so he developed a concept called willed not learning. Because if you actually talk to kids that are not doing well in school, okay, and you get into an authentic conversation with them, what you often hear from them is probably the most famous line from this book. And a kid says to Herb, he says, Herb, I don't care what you know until I know that you care. And this launched a whole field of research and education called the caring research or caring literature. But More recently, hey, we've had all these breakthroughs in neuroscience that validate what we see in the educational research. Robert Sapolsky, not far from here, he runs a neurobiology lab at Stanford. He's arguably the world's leading expert on how stress affects the body and the brain. Robert's book, Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers, is mandatory reading in every medical field. Now, I don't necessarily recommend it unless you nerd out on neuroscience. Okay, I do, I love it, okay, but this book is like 600 pages at 6-point font, okay? So you can just buy it and stick it on your shelf and then you'll look smarter, okay? If you don't want to read it, hey, there is a great documentary film that's only 45 minutes long that covers everything that's in the book. Hey, and you can get this on any streaming service, YouTube, whatever, and it really is a good documentary that breaks down, right, all the research that led to this groundbreaking book. How many are familiar with Brené Brown? Yeah. Yeah, Brené's dope. Brené gets, really well known because of her TED Talks. I did a TED Talk. I think TED Talks are cool. I also think TED Talks are dangerous, hey, because you get to summarize like your life's work in 16 to 18 minutes. Okay? And it's dope because people get access to all kinds of things they might not otherwise get access to. But it's dangerous because it's like you watch a 16-minute talk on being trauma responsive, and then you go forth and try to heal all the trauma. Okay? And what you do is you just start adding to the trauma. Okay? So if you watch a TED Talk and you're like, that's dope, like that could really impact my practice, go get the book. Because in the book, right, you get granular. In the book, you get depth, right? In the book, you get breadth. You really get to understand the things that you want to implement in your practice at a deeper level. So what was great about Brené's work is that she disentangled. She engaged in a project much more successfully than me. I'm trying to disentangle equality and equity. She disentangled for us sympathy and empathy. Because they're not the same thing, but they were conflated. They were being used as if they were synonymous. So what is sympathy? What do you think? What's that mean? You feel sorry for somebody. Okay, does anybody know what happens inside your body, like what your neurological and biochemical response is when you have a sympathetic reaction to somebody? Exactly, nothing. Okay? Because a sympathetic reaction to somebody is not a search for connection, it's a search for distance. I feel sorry for you, deuces. Okay? That's what it means, right, to be sympathetic to somebody. What's empathy? Right, when you feel them, right? How many of you have young people that say to you, I feel you, dog, I feel you, I feel you, I feel you, maestro, right? That they're articulating, right, an empathic connection. And what we know in the research is that when you make an empathic connection with somebody, your biochemistry is altered. Your neural pathways are altered because your body has a biochemical response and it releases chemicals like oxytocin, which is really good for your body. It's known as the happy drug. It actually heals your body because human beings need connection. So when you are connecting with the student, you are literally engaged in an act of wellness for you and for them. Hey? And one of the greatest contributors to wellness in human beings, you saw on the earlier slide deck, dogs. Hey, there's all this research. Now, this depends on what your childhood was like with dogs, because some of us had a different relationship with dogs, where now we see dogs like, hell no. Hey? But right? If you have that kind of relationship with a dog, when you pet a dog, it literally alters your biochemistry. That's why you use the term calm, because it is actually calming for you. And the list goes on and on and on from the top research institutions in the world about why relationships matter so much, including our own Surgeon General, the first black woman Surgeon General in the state of California, Nadine Burke-Harris, right, who did lots of work with wounded and vulnerable youth in San Francisco for many, many years. Her book, The Deepest Well, is dope. Hey, teachers should read that. Now, for a couple of these buckets, I'm going to show you a clip, because I've been in enough of these sessions where, like, the theory makes sense to me, the philosophy makes sense to me, but the gap we have to close in practice is the theory to practice gap. We have good theory, but what does it actually look like on the ground? So I'm going to show you a clip right now from one of my favorite films. I think every teacher should watch this film because watching a truly skilled educator is transformative, and seeing is believing. So if you see it, you know it's possible with the babies that you serve. So this film is called Children Full of Life. It is a feature-length documentary film about the Teacher of the Year in Japan. And I guarantee you, unless your heart is made of stone, when you watch this film, you will leak. Because it is so powerful what he does with these kids over the 2 years that he has them. So the reason I like to use this film from Japan in the US is because I do these talks with teachers, and teachers will be like, yo, Jay, like, I want to be that teacher. All the things you're saying, it totally resonates with me. And then what's the next word out of their mouth? But. Okay, and then, I'm just stuck under these standards, and I'm stuck under this testing, and I'm stuck under, and the reason I like to use this film from Japan is because Japan is one of the most professionally restrictive environments we have in industrialized nations for teachers. And so if Kanamori can do this under those conditions, we can certainly do this under the conditions in which we operate, which are way more permissive than what they have in Japan. Way more permissive than what I see. I mean, it's hard. This work is damn hard. But just be glad you ain't doing it in Florida. No, for real. Okay? So sometimes, right, we get into navel gazing, and we're really focused on how tough it is for us here, right? But in the broader context, our colleagues in other states, right, they got way less wiggle room than we do. Take advantage of your wiggle room to create classrooms like you're going to see here.
Late April, Ren Sueda comes to class for the first time in 4 days. His grandmother died. In his notebook, Ren writes about the death, the funeral, his loss.
21日の日曜日、呼ばれて2階に行ったらおばあちゃんは亡くなっていた。おばあちゃんは眠るように亡くなっていた。おばあちゃん
They were worried. They didn't know why Ren was away. Now they're moved at his pain and saddened by his loss.
告別式だった。最後のお別れに花をいっぱい入れてあげた。僕は涙がボロボロと出た。みんなも泣いていた。バスで火葬場へ行った。1時間ぐらいでおばあちゃんは骨になっていた。おばあちゃんがいなくなって寂しいです。
手挙げてる人全員立ちなさい。
The letter unlocks some brutal and long-hidden memories.
私の誕生日の日の前にの夜におじいちゃんが寝ながら亡くなってしまって、私はおじいちゃんの顔を見れずに
Mifuyu has been holding down her memories for more than half her life.
私は3歳の時にお父さんが亡くなって命の危機のところも書きたかったんだけど書こうと思ったんだけど書けないくらい悲しくてそれで私はお父さんが亡くなった時には3歳だったんだけどそういうことが分かっててそれで
She'd been afraid to talk about her father. She didn't want to seem different. She paid a price.
育ってたんだけどでも涙が止まらなくて電話ができないくらいだったのでその話を聞いて私はすごく楽しかったです。
Now, at last, she feels safe enough to talk about her missing parent.
この学級で一番僕は辛い経験を持っているのは美冬だと思う。で、今日は僕は美冬がそのことを、いつも心にしまっておくと辛い。ね、な美冬。だから一度は美冬がお父さんのことをみんなの前で言った方が気が楽になるだろうなと思ってたけども、その心をね、レンちゃんの頼りも開いてくれたわけだ、手紙のことな。これ調べて分かったことを書いていくな。
They're trying to understand. They all find it painful. Some find it unbearable. Yo Enomoto is the class spark plug, high energy, charming. Now he's remembering the death of his grandmother.
そう思い出した。それはいいこと、素敵なこと。はい。でも、はい、元気よくだ。はい、食べよう。はい。一番はやっぱり共感だろうと思うね。まあ、僕なんか大好きな言葉に、心に人を住まわせる。心に定員はないから、そうやって、みんなに語ってみんなに共感してもらって本当にこう聞く相手がいると、そうやって自分の心の中に人が住み着く、それが手紙ノートのものすごい大きな意味かなと思って。
That's just one clip, right? There's moments like that, right, throughout the film where his skill is on display. And, you know, we could just take that one clip and spend this, you know, all our time together analyzing it. But I want to point out one thing in particular about what you see in that clip that I think is really important for us to understand as educators. Who's doing the healing? Everybody. Right? What he acknowledges, right, is that indigenous principle that we are all medicine people. And if you try to take on all of the woundedness with the 30 kids in your class or the 180 if you're a secondary teacher, hey, you can't do it. It's not humanly possible. And that's not your job anyway. Your job is to create the conditions with an understanding that we are all medicine people and that we can all heal one another. And to be open to the young people giving you some of their medicine when you need your healing. And to understand that sometimes the medicine that that young person needs, you don't even have it, but the kid next to them does, right? And that's what Kanamori is so good at. When you start building relationships, it's not about teacher to student relationships. It's about a community of healers. Now, if we get those kinds of relationships, hey, then the question we've got to continually ask ourselves is, what are we actually teaching the babies? Now, again, I'm in schools all over the country all the time, and everybody's talking about being culturally relevant or culturally responsive or culturally sustaining, which I think is dope. Like the theory and the research around those things are that they absolutely matter. So I'm going to give you a checklist right now, even though I don't really like checklists. Okay? Because if you want to say that you're culturally responsive, culturally relevant, culturally sustaining, right, then every time I'm around your space, I should see students' lives, communities, families, and ethnic, cultural, and linguistic histories. Not just once a year during that month. Okay? I should see it in the hallways. I should see it in the bathrooms. Hey, I should see it in your classrooms. I should see it on the playground. I should see it in the lunchroom. Right? Everywhere you go, students should be affirmed for their value, their ancestral brilliance. Hey? And the more that we can do that, right, then everywhere they look, they're learning. If the only time they're learning is we're doing direct instruction, what about the kid that's daydreaming? Okay? I want to create an environment where even when you daydream, fool, I got you. Hey, you're still learning. You're still learning. And there's tons of research evidence about why relevant spaces matter so much for youth. This just isn't a cute, woke idea. The medical research clearly backs this up about why it's so important for youth wellness to be in environments that make them feel like they are relevant. And there's a clear logic sequence that happens in a child's development when they're in those spaces. When you are in a space that is relevant to you, it builds your knowledge of self. And when you know more about who you really are, your self-esteem gets jacked up. And we saw self-esteem in Maslow. Does anybody remember where it is in his hierarchy? Where was it? Classic, the mumblers. It's like my high school class. Right. So, what'd you say? Yes, second from the top. Self-esteem is the window into self-actualization. You cannot consistently self-actualize as a human being if you don't love yourself. How is it possible that we have so many children that spend 7 hours a day for 13 consecutive years with us, and they leave us and they don't love themselves? They don't know their own value. Well, one of the reasons for that is because we don't measure self-love in schools. That's a missing metric. Hey, Angela Duckworth, y'all got inducted into grit, huh? Was grit a thing here? No? Angela missed Santa Clara? Hey, well, Angela told me once, she says, Jeff, we measure what we treasure. So if you treasure self-love in your classroom, if you treasure self-love in your school, if you treasure self-love in your district, you got to measure it, because that's telling kids we actually are paying attention to whether or not you love yourself. What we tell kids is, I care more about your reading score than I do about your self-esteem. That's what we tell them, because we show them. That can change. There are measurements for the things that matter most for youth development, including self-esteem, including hope. We see that kids with higher self-esteem have higher hope levels. We have clear medical evidence that kids with higher hope levels are more likely to persist. It's not grit that they need, it's hope. They already have grit just by virtue of the fact that making it to our classrooms. When hope levels go up, it interrupts stereotype threat. How many of you test kids? You're in California. You have to, okay? Unless they opt out. So I test kids. I'm not against testing. I'm against the place that testing is taken in our profession, okay? Testing has lost its proper place. We should be testing and seeking to know whether or not our kids are understanding. But how we do that has a massive impact on performance. Hey, the best research I've seen around how to create those kind of environments where how many of you have had a student that can do the work and they sit exam and they choke? Okay, we now know neurobiologically why that happens, okay, and it's called stereotype threat. Okay? This concept was developed by a black psychologist named Claude Steele, who was at Stanford for a long time. Then he bounced to Columbia, and I think he just came back to Stanford. The book that you want to read is called Whistling Vivaldi. Okay? That will help you understand how to set up a classroom environment where testing doesn't threaten kids, but that allows them to actually show you what they actually know. When we get interrupted stereotype threat, we get what psychologists Rosenthal and Jacobson referred to as the Pygmalion effect. Okay? You can either read Rosenthal and Jacobson or you can listen to Eminem, because they're both saying the same thing. Okay? Eminem says, I am whatever you say I am. That's the Pygmalion effect. Okay? A Pygmalion effect is when this young person mirrors back to you what they think you believe about them. Okay? And that is effectively what happens in a growth mindset classroom. How many of you are familiar with growth mindset? Yep. Okay. See, and the problem is that even Carol Dweck, okay, who's at Stanford, who developed stereotype threat and was going all over the country doing this, right? Teaching people about stereotype, about growth mindset, and all the schools were like, yes, growth mindset. And for many teachers, right, who are not looking in the mirror, who are not understanding that student performance is a reflection of teacher performance. And instead, they're saying, they hear growth mindset, they're like, that's it. The problem's with the kid. They don't have a growth mindset. They have a fixed mindset. And if I can just fix their fixed mindset, they'll have a growth mindset, and then they'll learn. It's not me. It's not my curriculum. It's not my pedagogy. It's not my classroom culture and climate. It's their mindset. And then Carol was like, you didn't even read my book. You just watched my TED Talk, didn't you? So she does another PD and goes back out to all these schools and is like, look, the student's mindset reflects your mindset. If a student has a fixed mindset, it's because they believe that you have a fixed mindset about what they're capable of. And if you want kids to have a growth mindset, then you got to have a growth mindset about that kid. And you got to know, as a parent of twins, hey, that what I do to get a growth mindset for Tayari looks different than what I do to get a growth mindset for Amaru. And I can't blame Amaru that the stuff that works for Tayari doesn't work for him. Okay? For 40 years, the gold standard of excellent pedagogy has been differentiated instruction. Hold that. When a kid is stuck, differentiate your approach to them to build the growth mindset. Have a growth mindset with them. Don't try to change their mindset, change yours. Infinite potential, right? Hang on to that. Third is responsibility, okay? So you get that relationships bucket handled. You get that relevance bucket handled, right? Then you got to sit in your responsibility. And your responsibility is first and foremost and always to the most wounded ones and the most vulnerable ones. Because when they see you lean into your mufuyu, okay, like Kanamori did, it's a lesson for everybody else in the room that when I'm wounded, when I'm hurting, when I can't fully show up, this teacher's going to have my back. And I know it because they're willing to do it with Johnny. And everybody hates Johnny. I've been with Johnny since kindergarten. He's been getting his ass kicked out since crayons. And this is the first teacher I've ever seen hug that kid, bang for that kid, hold that kid down, feed that kid, teach that kid. So I know on my worst day, this teacher's going to have my back. Don't ever lose track of the fact that kids don't evaluate you based on how you treat them. They evaluate you based on how you treat their peers. Hey, they're watching us, hey, how we react, hey, in our worst moments. And can we own our own worst moments when we screw it up, right? Can we come back and humbly apologize to a child when we don't have to? Hey, those kind of lessons are what it means to sit in our responsibility. And when you get stuck with that wounded one, triple down on Maslow. Go again, go again, go again. Because when you're wounded, what you learn is that to let people with power into your head is dangerous. And so you don't. You lock teachers out because, not because you don't want to learn, not because you don't want to succeed, because it's literally biologically unsafe for you. That's the resistance you get. Don't take it personal. Drop your ego. I see too many teachers, my own colleagues, that they're good people and they want to be there for kids. And they try to show up for a wounded one, and that wounded one curses them out, isn't having it, literally boots them in the shin. And then that teacher's ego pops up because they're wounded too, and they haven't dealt with their own woundedness. And then their response is, well, fine then, if you don't want my help, because I'm a good person and I show up every day and I take shit wages to do it, and I'm just going to stay over here, and then when you're ready, you come to me. And then what that kid learns is, I knew it. Because that isn't even a slice of what I'm suffering in. And I gave you a little tiny wink, and you bailed. But if you go again and again and again and again, you win. Win the heart to win the head. If a kid locks you out of their head, leave it alone. Don't bring them to tutoring. Bring them to heart work. And keep massaging the heart and massaging the heart and massaging the heart. And once they know that that's what you're about, they'll let you in their head. Of all the stuff I've read, about why this is medically true, this is my Bible. Okay, Bruce Perry is considered one of the nation's leading experts on child trauma. Okay, and his book, The Boy As Raised as a Dog, should be mandatory reading for every teacher, because every single chapter is a case study of young people that he's worked with that have experienced extreme trauma and woundedness. And what I love about Bruce, there's a lot of things I love about Bruce. Okay, one of the things I love about Bruce is he's the first medical doctor I've ever met that says teachers are first responders. Yeah, right? Because where does all youth trauma go? To us. And then we get like one trauma training for the whole year, and then like, okay, go forth and heal all youth trauma, right? So this book is a great guide because Bruce understands our work, and he's heavily focused on schools and youth workers in the book. And what he does that's so helpful in this book is that he tells you what happened to the kid, and then he tells you how it manifests, and he tells you why it manifests that way. And what that does for you, if you can learn how to read behavior differently, you will change the way you react to behavior. So if you understand, this isn't defiance, this isn't disrespect, this is a biological imperative for this child to operate in this way because they're wounded. And if you understand that, this isn't a bad kid, this kid isn't disrespectful, this kid is hurting, then it changes the way that you react to that behavior. And this book is a great way to understand that more deeply. And the third thing I love about Bruce is then he tells you what to do. Okay? When you're seeing these kind of behaviors, this is how you de-escalate. Some other light reading for you in case you get bored during the school year. How many of you have read The Sum of Us? Ooh, okay, right? If you're going to be on an equity journey, better read this. Hey, Heather McGee's work is the best thing I've seen that explains why a pivot to equity is so hard for this nation. What are the structural and historical impediments that we have to understand to create a more equitable democracy? Now, if you don't have time to read this 450-page book in 8-point font, she has a dope podcast of the same name, where she covers the same material that is covered in the book. Unnatural Causes, 6-part film series, documentary film series from PBS. Amazing website, tons of resources for teachers. I use this in my high school class all the time. It is the largest research study ever conducted in the world on this question. Is inequality making us sick? Short answer? Yes, right? Widely agreed upon in the medical research. The biggest threat to health on the planet is inequality, which means the biggest threat to health in your classroom is inequality. The biggest threat to health in your school is inequality. The biggest threat to health in your community is inequality. If we're going to build healthy communities, schools have to find any form of inequality completely and totally odious. We need children to experience for 13 years a world where inequality is intolerable, unacceptable, and gets eradicated every single time adults see it. When that environment is what children experience for 13 years, the community will change. Lastly, New Jim Crow. Michelle Alexander's brilliant work that clearly articulates in the research the relationship between school and the prison pipeline. We know with absolute certainty that one referral increases one referral. You put pen to paper one time, it increases that child's likelihood of contacting juvenile hall 2x. Twice, 4x, and so forth. And we also know that one contact with juvenile hall increases that child's likelihood of contacting the state penitentiary 2x. We've got to find a different way to respond to the needs of kids that show up in classrooms. And that has to be a community response. You can't just say, don't write referrals. There's times when a kid is in the classroom and it's unsafe for the kid. It's unsafe for the community. What do we do then? We've got to, referrals are not the answer. There are 0 studies, not one study has ever shown that referrals change behavior. But schools have not adapted to create a better process for young people that need a different environment during that moment. We've got to get better at that at schools. So I'll end by giving you a look into my own classroom. because I'm trying to do this every day. Okay? And it's imperfect. Up here, easy, slide deck, push a buttons, everything's in order. Okay? On the ground, in the work, it's messy. Okay, so I'm going to show you a little bit of the mess when it starts to come together and find meaning for us. Now, I need to say two things about this. First, the story that my student is going to tell you could trigger some trauma, okay, because she's going to talk about sexual abuse that she experienced. So if you know that's a trigger for you and you need to take space, please do so. If you see your colleague take space, please acknowledge their humanity. And yes, I saw you do that. I saw you do that for your colleague. Hey, that wasn't lost on me. So thank you, right? After my spirit, thank you. The second thing I want to say is that what you're going to see didn't happen overnight. Okay? I live in the community where I teach. This child is literally my neighbor. I watched her grow up. Hey? And it didn't matter. When she came to my 9th grade class, within 5 minutes, she had started a fight. We didn't cover the syllabus that day. So I loop with kids, right? So I take kids in 9th grade, and then I have them in 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th. 4-year English lit loop, okay, as part of a whole program that we built. So this is 6 weeks into year 2. And I want to say that because it takes time, invested time with the babies to be able to build the kind of relationships that allow for the kind of healing that you saw with Kanamori and the kind of healing that you're going to see here. So with that, right, when I think about my responsibility as an educator, when I think about my responsibility to build a classroom, build a curriculum, build a climate, build a culture, I think about her. It's got to work for her.
My poem is called More Skies and Birthdays. If I had a gun pointed to my head and my life flashed before my eyes, I would see the times I would smoke with my cousins, drinking, smacking, doing powder till I knew I was too gone, cheating on my boyfriend with my ex because he would tell me he still loved me, lying to the people I love, hurting the people that care about me the most, and then I would see the reason why. I would see a little and if I had a gun pointed to my head and I had minutes left to live, I would tell that little girl it's okay to tell your mom. It's safe to cry. Go through your pain so you can heal. Drugs will not heal your pain, will not block it out. Love yourself. One day, trust somebody, love somebody. Let yourself be loved. If I had a gun pointed at my head, I would cry and tell 15-year-old me, I love you, don't regret your mistakes. Because I've learned that my mistakes are the lesson I needed to learn so I could create a better future.
Data-driven, right? Well, the data says she's in your class. She's going to be there this year. She's going to be there next year. She's going to be there every year you teach, and so is he. That's what the data says. That's what it means to be responsive, is to build a classroom, right, where that child can begin the healing process that is so long overdue. And what is so painful when I hear this story over and over and over again is the realization that she went through kinder, first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, my ninth grade class, before there was space for her to finally, right, be in community with other medicine people. And who was doing the healing? Did you hear the students? Right? Calling her in. It's okay. We got you. We got you. You got this. Why? Because they're up next. And guess what their story is? Just like hers. And so no chisme, no cyberbullying. It doesn't make it into the hallways. No disrespect, right? Because we are part of this collective space of healing and responsibility to one another. Very different, hey, than a class that is uber motivated on getting all the kids to Harvard, even though some of those kids went to Harvard. So I'll end by regrounding us, hey, in the wisdom of the original people of this land. One of my Cherokee elders told me a story about this little boy who's out in front of his house. He's playing around, and then suddenly he just like runs inside, and he runs up to his abuelita. He runs up to his grandma. He says, "Abuelita, I feel like there's a war going on inside my head." And she says, "There is, mijo." And he says, "Who's fighting, abuelita?" And she says, "It's the two wolves." And he says, "Who are the two wolves, abuelita?" And she says, "One wolf is rage, avarice, greed, selfishness, violence." And he says, "Who's the other wolf, abuelita?" And she says, "The other wolf is cariño, familia, love, empathy." And he says, "Who wins, abuelita?" And she says, "The one you feed." That wolf is alive in every single one of us. It's the natural human condition, that binary, that tension, right? Don't take away the fight from the babies. We want our children to fight. We come from warrior cultures, and public schooling for us has been a project of domestication. Build the fight in the babies. Want them to fight, but challenge and question and cajole them to wonder about who are you fighting and what are you fighting for. And if we build communities with the warriors that the ancestors have given us, hey, then we can truly create an equitable space for our babies, for our families, and for ourselves. If I can help you in any way on that journey, I encourage you again to Photoshop that so that you can send me an email so that we can go on this journey collectively as community. I thank you for the work that you do. I wish for all of you that you become the teacher that you always wished you had every single day. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff, for giving us so much to reflect on, to think about how we're all in community with our young people and engage in relationships, relevance, and responsibility. So I think he's given us all a lot to reflect on as we move forward. Please join me in giving Jeff another round of applause. All right, I'll be calling Student Trustee Brown, our MC, back up in just a moment with a final message. And I want to thank you for everything that you do and as you engage in community with our youth next Tuesday and beyond. I wish you all an amazing, amazing year, making a difference for them.
As we wind down our speaking agenda, I would like to take a moment to recognize our event sponsors. Helping us to make big gatherings like this possible is a group of community and business partners who all appreciate our district staff's important work. The top four have sponsored our keynote today, and our other amazing sponsors have donated giveaways and are hosting activities at the appreciation area that opens shortly. Everyone, please give a round of applause to our sponsors. Speaking of the giveaways, the Santa Clara School Foundation has a really fun one. They have donated 3 Nintendo Switch lights. If you have a ticket under your seat that looks like this, please stand if you have a sticker. There should be one in the bleachers over here, one in the seats over here, and one in the back bleachers over there. If you have found a ticket, you can bring the ticket to the swag tables next door, and we will give you your prize. Next door in the small gym. Oh, give her a round of applause if you have found a ticket. Next door in the small gym, you'll get to meet today's keynote. You also can pick up Santa Clara Unified School District swag of your choice, including ceramic mugs, Stanley-style tumblers, light-up tumblers, trucker hats, Bluetooth speakers, umbrellas, and tote bags. We made sure to have enough of the bigger items so everyone gets one. We are working on the honor system today. Please select only one of the bigger items so the person next to you can have one also. But we have a lot of pendants, lip balms, kindness stickers, sunglasses, tangles, and pens. You can take as many as you want. In the quad, you can pick up free snow cones and visit booths for more giveaways, photo stations, and hand-on activities opportunities. We appreciate our event sponsors and would like to invite up to the stage our gold-level keynote sponsor representative, Camille Sakaja from Mission City Federal Credit Union.
Thank you. Hello. I hope you all had a great summer break. It always feels very short, so I'm sure some of you might like another couple of weeks. I do. But I also like some cooler weather so we can go on a nice hike. Now, I know firsthand the dedication that you bring to your classrooms and the school environment every day. I've been married to a teacher for 27 years, so thank you for all you do. From the bus drivers who pick up the kids in the morning, the cafeteria and the custodial teams, the administrative staff that keep the school working, the teachers in your classrooms, you do some amazing work. Thank you. As I was preparing for this event, I did what some of your students might try. I asked AI to write me a speech. It was horrible. A lot of generic phrases, stereotypes. In this age of AI, everything digital, social media, what you do in the classroom every day matters. You bring the environment for our kids to learn, to grow, to become their full potential. No AI can ever repeat that. Thank you. And that closely relates with our values at Mission City. We were started in 1959 by Santa Clara City employees. Our first branch was in the Santa Clara City building. And we believe strongly in financial well-being for everyone. That's from that lady sitting in that end to the other one that on this end. Everyone in this room and everyone outside in the hallway. And the biggest driver for financial well-being is financial literacy for the next generation. We appreciate the opportunity to partner with you in financial literacy in the classrooms. And some of you may have already met our Lonnie Contreras, our Education Community Relations Officer. Please reach out to Lonnie for support, any resource for training materials, student internships, financial simulations, the Zogo app, and more. And we're also here to support you in your own financial journey, whether that's a car loan, a new mortgage, or a checking account. Please stop by at our stand. We have a great team outside, and don't forget to pick up your free tote bag. Again, thank you for all you do and the opportunity to speak with you today. Welcome back and have a great school year.
Thank you for all your generosity in welcoming and appreciating our district staff this school year. The small gym and appreciation area will be open until 10:40 a.m. We ask the school site-based staff to move to the locations identified for mandatory emergency response trainings with our city and a law enforcement agencies. Maps like this one pictured here will be on the easels throughout the quad to help you find your way. Thank you for being here this morning and have a wonderful school year.